You know that feeling you get when you're in class on presentation day and it's getting closer and closer to your turn to present? That anxiety, the nervousness? I think we can all agree here that that is not a great feeling. But imagine feeling that way every single time you enter a room. Every single time that you are put in a position where you have to socialize or interact with anyone that you don't know very well. Congratulations, you now know what it feels like to grow up shy, which a lot of you should. There was a study done in 2016 by Dr. Bernardo Carducci, a professor of psychology, who came to the conclusion that around 43% of the population is or was shy at some point. Now, after doing some research, I wasn't able to find any updated statistics. So there's no true way of knowing whether this number has decreased or increased. But we could come to the conclusion that that number is far more than that because previously he conducted a study in 1995 and that number was at 37%. So from 1995 to 2016, that number of people who experienced shyness increased. Now, as someone who still deals with this in minor aspects, as someone who dealt with this as a child and well into my teenage years, I can confidently say that a lot of people believe that the correct way to help a shy child build their social skills is to force them into social interaction. But that's incorrect, and I'll tell you why. So, in fifth grade, I had this teacher, science class, and he knew and understood that I was not in the slightest bit an outgoing person. And so every class period, he would stand in the front of the room, and as he was teaching and giving his lesson to the class, he would turn, stop, and ask a question. And as he asked this question, he would look directly at me and force me to stand up and answer the question. And if I chose not to answer that question, he would stare at me with a very mean and irritable look until I chose to do so. Now, let's just use this story as an example as to why forcing social interaction may not be helpful for your child. Shy children do not usually prefer attention, and that's simply out of the fear of being perceived. Unwanted attention makes a shy child uncomfortable and can possibly trigger anxiety. As a child who preferred to go unnoticed, when that teacher would call my name, forcing all 32 of those students to turn and look at me, it made me even more afraid. Having all those eyes on me was terrifying, and that usually triggered anxiety that I wasn't capable of handling at such a young age. Keep in mind, I was 10 years old. Over time, I began to directly associate social interaction with anxiety. Thalia Ely, a professor of developmental behavioral genetics at King College London, stated that most of shyness is directly linked to a response to the environment that a child is in. So every time I walked into that classroom, I felt severe discomfort. My heart would immediately start racing because I knew what was to come when I entered that classroom. And so for that reason, it made me less eager to ever want to do it again. That teacher who thought he was doing the right thing by forcing me to interact only discouraged me even more. And so my fifth grade teacher's reaction to my shy behavior made me feel inferior. It made me feel like something was genuinely wrong with me. I mean, from the viewpoint of this little 10-year-old little girl, why else would he be fighting so hard to take me out of that quiet, withdrawn state that I was in? But let's put aside being shy for just a moment. I think we all know that anytime we are forced to do anything, we never truly want to do it. When you were a child and your mom forced you to clean your room or go wash the dishes, did you actually want to do it? Forcing anyone in general never magically makes them more eager to want to do these things the next time. In fact, it's only discouraging. Honestly, though, it wasn't until I entered ninth grade that I can say I truly felt myself growing out of being shy. But that was because I had teachers around me who made me feel comfortable being who I was. They knew and understood that I was more reserved than most students, just like my fifth grade teacher knew. But the only difference was they didn't view my behavior as a problem. And because they didn't view it as a problem, I felt more encouraged and more eager to start conversations and to participate in class. Again, we'll reference Professor Thalia, her statement that most shyness is linked to the type of environment. Once I was placed in a more positive and encouraging environment, my body's reaction towards social interaction began to change. And that way, I was able to develop my confidence and my social skills naturally. So, as we come to the end of this talk, I'd like to mention a quote by the Malvern School that reads, "Shyness is a strength to build on, not a character flaw to be stamped out." I'd like to reiterate that forcing social interaction on shy children can lead to serious anxiety and could potentially make them believe their shyness is a problem and discourage them from ever wanting to put themselves out there. With that being said, if you know or have a child who seems to struggle with being shy or even social anxiety in itself, let's instead try to encourage those children and rather than being dismissive of how they feel, acknowledge their feelings. Of course, you can always try to persuade them to try new things, but do not react negatively when they choose not to do so. One of the most important things when dealing with shy children is your attitude towards their feelings. And so when we change the way we view shy children, they will ultimately change the way they see themselves. And then they will naturally grow to be more confident in themselves. And confidence is how you will begin to build their social skills.